Okay. All right. One more time. Sorry.
These guys are all big influences on me and certainly house music.
So let's go on that. I want to talk a little bit about each of your illustrious careers, because you guys have done a lot. All three of you have done amazing, have had amazing contributions to what we call house music. This is the Vintage House Show. And so part of what that is about is celebration and preservation. This is Lawrence framing, but the celebration and preservation of Chicago house legends and Chicago house music. And
Welcome to the Vintage House Show Special Edition. I am Lauren Lowry, the executive producer of the Vintage House Show and sometimes host. And we are so excited to have the creators and the founders of Viva Acid, which is taking place this week in Chicago, October 2nd through the 5th. On the call with us today is co-founder Andrew Emil and one of the Viva Acid team, Fortune. And we're looking forward to learning more about them as human beings, and then more about Viva Acid. So we'll start with Andrew Emil. Andrew, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from? What brought you to Chicago? And some of the things you've worked on in and around house music. I saw a little bit of your bio. It's extensive. So give us the origin story.
Sure. I originally grew up in Kansas City, Missouri. I spent the first half of my childhood in Kansas City. And when I studied music, I've been a musician my whole life since I was 12, studied percussion, played in percussion orchestra, jazz band, started collecting records, really getting into house music there. And then I moved to Chicago in 1998 to go to college, but also to start making house music. I wanted to make some of the records I was inspired by at that time were more of the second generation producer artists, folks from Casual, Relief, Prescription Balance. This whole era was really when I started buying records in around 96. And so that's what brought me to Chicago. When I got here, I was an undergrad, and I had started studying percussion. I was doing performance, but then I started working at this stereo store, which was a really famous DJ shop here that you might remember called Midwest Stereo on Clark Street, just north of Gramophone Records, ran by a guy named Sammy Lavi and his wife Betty. And that was my first retail job, first job in Chicago. And a lot of producers and DJs used to come through there. And one day I went back with a former coworker's to his house, and he had an MPC 60, and it was the first time I saw sequencing live. I didn't know that you could program music into a machine and it would play back. It was pretty mind-blowing, because up until that point I had only seen music notes on page or playing with ensembles. I thought that's what music was you played with other people, and it is, but I didn't realize that you could program music. So from then on I was really awestruck with making records and the art of recording, and so from there I got an internship working for a guy named Vince Lawrence. Worked for Vince for 6 years at Chicago Trax Studios on Larrabee in Chicago. That's a place where some of Blood Sugar Sex Magic was made. Parts of Pretty Hate Machine by Nine Inch Nails was recorded there. A bunch of house music came through there. Tons of industrial music came through there. R. Kelly had a studio there for many years. Jive had an office that worked out of there for a long time. So that was like Wayne Williams and people like that would spend a lot of time there as well too. And so I worked sessions there as an engineer. Made a bunch of records, continue to make records, and I've been making records for about 25 years at this point. Too many labels to name, but continue DJing and continuing being active part of Chicago's house music community, traveling the world DJing and collaborating on different music projects. And so that's pretty much where I am. Outside of doing music as an artist, I also make and market music instruments for large companies. I've worked for some pretty major effects processing companies, like basically companies that make studio equipment, effects processors, and synthesizers and instruments. And I currently do marketing for a Kai professional who makes the MPC. So that's a bit of a full circle moment working for the company that made the initial drum machine that inspired me to want to make electronic music. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Thank you for the synopsis. I know it's long, and everyone should check out your website if they want to get into the details, because it is very extensive. So very happy to meet you and to be speaking with you. Fortune is a part of the Viva Acid team. She's working on programming this year. Fortune, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from? How did you get interested? You're also a DJ. You suggested as well. Tell me a little bit about where you're from, how you came to be interested in house music.
Certainly. I grew up in England, born and raised, and my entry point was the emergence and takeover of raves in the late 80s and early 90s culture. It was, of course, huge in England and Europe, as well as here. And I fell in love with that culture, went to my first rave in 1990 and became involved with a promotion outfit there, became very good friends with them, and orchestrated some bookings for a friend or two. And then a few years later, I ended up in America. I moved over here in 1993, and I ended up living in Milwaukee, just north of Chicago, of course, for almost 30 years. Had a son, raised him there, but became being in such close proximity to Chicago, became very familiar with a lot of the Chicago culture that was, I think, already revered in England and Europe, maybe sometimes more than it was in Chicago. I had very, very impactful experience watching Steve Silk-Hurley at #1 on Top of the Pops every week as an 11-year-old. That was our top 40 #1 in the UK for weeks. So I started DJing in 99 and then became a full-time promoter in 2004. And so strengthened my ties with Chicago there a lot because, of course, I was booking a lot of Chicago talent, only being 90 miles away. And just really a big fan of the people who have been proponents of that culture and the musicianship and the DJs. And then I moved to Chicago at the end of 22. I had the opportunity to come down here. I was doing some work for a design agency. And so I moved, that was based in Evanston. And so I moved down here and have been loving it, like wishing I could have done it earlier, but absolutely love it. Love being here, DJing and running my booking agency and doing work for Viva Acid. And here I am.
That is amazing. That's a great story.
Thank you.
We love meeting folks from England. I'm going to be in London on Friday, I guess on Saturday, by the way. So we'll talk later about that.
Have a wonderful time.
Yeah, I've been several times, but a quick trip this weekend. And so unfortunately, it looks like I'm going to miss some things. I may try to, if I can pop through maybe on Thursday, I would love to see what's going on there. So Andrew, talk to us quickly. I did not do a thing there. I have no idea how she jumped off. But Andrew, talk to us quickly about, so your time starting in house music. You mentioned you did work with Vince Lawrence. Vince Lawrence is clearly a friend of the show. Mm-hmm. Part of our team was in his fantastic documentary. And also, we just introduced, I was lucky enough to be the moderator for the talk that he had introducing the documentary at Chicago, House Music Festival this year. Mm-hmm. Talk to us about your time with Vince Lawrence and some of the other pioneers that you might have worked with working with him early in your career.
Sure. I started working for Vince as an assistant engineer because I was studying audio at the time. And I would run late night sessions at Slang when he was the back studio at Chicago Tracks recording, and did a lot of different sessions for him. And because I'm a traditional musician in the sense of like I'm a skilled keyboardist, so it's always something that people need on projects. So not only was I an engineer and sort of budding producer about how to make records sound really good, I always had musical chops to play for people. So I connected with a lot of different pioneers and people of a generation above me, and also in my same level of peers of the same era, through musicianship, being able to collaborate on records, or, hey, you need a key part, or, can you knock out a bass line for me real quick, or, this kind of stuff. Because when it comes to making records, there's no hierarchy. It's sort of like musicianship has always been like this, even back into the jazz era. And it's also multi-generational and multicultural. Like you just sort of just show up to the studio, and if you can play, you can play, and it's about getting the records made and moving the creativity forward. And so that was always sort of the level playing field that I was able to really build networks and community people that I worked with a lot since I've been here. And I've developed some pretty long-term partnerships with some. I think probably the longest running partnership outside of Vince I've had, because I've worked with Vince when we were together there for 6 years and still work with him closely today. We've done a lot of multimedia, because I've worked in film and TV for a while as a part of my career too, for Disney and CBS, doing orchestral composing and orchestration and copy work and stuff. And I still work with Vince in the capacity of doing media music as well. And also have just done a remix for him that's coming out soon of the last Chuck Roberts record that he did.
Wow.
Yeah, Vince and I are really close in that sense. But probably the longest running, partnership I've had with, lots of people in Chicago, but particularly I've worked with Steve Hurley for a very long time. I've probably done 16, 17 different records with him over the years, remixing a lot of artists on his label, even to the point of putting out a compilation of all the remixes that I've done for his label in 2021, which was a 34-track compilation of all the mixes I've done for Hurley's label and over the years. Everybody from Shalimar to CeCe Peniston to Common, Kanye West, Roland Clark, Dave Morales. More. Just this is ones I can remember off the top of my head. But Steve is Steve. I always say is the role model about how people should move in this industry. He is extremely accomplished and just an amazing human, and a very welcoming person to work with. Those are the things I can take off the top of my head, but obviously collaborate with a lot of other people. Glenn Underground's another person I've worked with for a very long time.
Nice.
There's the names could go on. I'm just thinking about people that I've worked with of a generation for a very long time, and Vince and Steve probably pop out as, we're talking 15, 20-year relationships, both of them. So.
We think that's so important. We love to give everyone their flowers on the Vintage House Show. So we love for people to talk about their influences, people who taught them, things like that. So, because some people don't get a documentary about themselves, you know what I mean? And they've helped and moved the genre forward, even with the little work they've done and the things that they've done to influence people like yourself who go on to, do different things and maybe bigger things. Fortune, talk to us a little bit about your DJ influences. Who were the people who you thought, really inspired you to get into the music, and then people who you've met over the years that you still think, are doing great things, or just whoever you believe, was influential in moving you towards house music?
How long do we have?
Only 3 minutes. You can say a lot of names in 3 minutes, honestly, but a little story behind it too.
That's true. Initial influences in England, and it is so funny because he's huge and still huge and was huge then, is Carl Cox. He was my first favorite DJ when I was 16, and he's still massive today.
He was here, wasn't he here this weekend? Or
yeah, I think he was.
He was here. Did you all check him out?
I did not have the chance to check him out this weekend, but I did see him at Metro some decade and a half ago probably, and have the chance to give him a hug at the end and say, I'm from England and I used to see you when I was this big, and he was super friendly and lovely. And so that was a full circle moment to see him in Chicago and actually get to talk to him. But in England, as I mentioned, a big influence was the fact that England embraced what over here was very underground, and it was maybe a bit more commercial there. So we had acts like The Prodigy and KLF being #1 on the charts, and Steve. So that was a very big influence. I also grew up just outside Bristol for a large part of my childhood, so the Bristol sound is a big influence. I have more broken beat influence from there, jungle, drum and bass originated there, the whole trip hop era. So when I moved to America, I started out playing a bunch of old rave records, but also concurrently hip hop, because it had that broken beat thing that I grew up with. And so I started out doing both. And then Chicago DJs had a massive influence on me, as the whole of the Super Jane collective, Heather, Darlene, Colette, and Dehoda, because I saw them play. I believe it was their first gig at Shelter. They were actually all in separate rooms. They weren't all playing together in the same booth. And I went around, and I think in my memory, it was the first time seeing women playing so up close, and it really had an impact on me, where I saw myself doing this thing that I'd been part of for years and years, but somehow never imagined myself actually being the one DJing, and having that very visual and up close experience of representation. It was like that really seeped in, where, oh, I can try this too. So they were a big influence. And then I've been lucky to work with so many people, both as DJs and as promoters, who influence me, not just musically, but also in the way they carry themselves, and the way they remain part of their communities, and the way they remain just regular people who love music despite decades of fame, such as the Green Velvets. One of my stories that I even pinch myself about is that I've played back to back with Green Velvet 3 times, just at after parties and after booking him, and I've had those sort of opportunities. Paul Johnson played in my living room. Gene Ferris has played in my living room. So while I have a lot of musical influences, I sometimes feel that those personal experiences and the relationships have just as important of an influence on how I operate in this community, not just the business side, and how I move on the business side. Because at the end of the day, it's really the people relationships and how we treat each other that is part of house music culture that I think is so important, not just the music, which of course is, incredibly important, but that is also a big part of it.
The culture is so important, and sometimes it's hard to relay that to people about how important that culture is, and how giving and how great some of these artists are. They're so talented, but so willing to share. Your living room sounds like a party. I mean, what the heck is going on in that living room?
But
now that we know each other, we need to be invited to what's going on in the living room.
That was some years ago. This
Okay.
was, this was going back a decade. But my living room was, my company back then, before it was apart, was called For You, and my living room was affectionately referred to as Club For You, because inevitably that's where, when people played, they would end up at the living room in my house. And so it had definitely seen some amazing talent and very cool people over the years.
Well, that is amazing.
Be invited. If there's a redux of anything like that, we will of course invite you.
Keep me posted. We will be right there, me and my team. We want to see what's going on in the living room for sure. This is really important to know, because folks want to understand who the team is at Viva Acid. Why are they interested in house music? Why would they want to put forward this kind of work to preserve the legacy? So let's move to Viva Acid. Emil, you and your co-founder, talk to me a little bit about him and how the idea got started. How long ago was Viva Acid in the planning, and then how did you start 3 years ago, and what's happening? How did it move forward to today?
Sure. Well, this is our 5th year, actually. So this
fifth year. Okay.
Yeah, this is year number 5. So Viva Acid was started by 3 of us, but it was an idea pitched by a very close friend named Luis Barrow. And give you a bit of background about Luis, because he's a Chicago native. Luis, so when I moved from Kansas City to Chicago, I grew up in Uptown. Luis is from Uptown as well, Uptown Ravenswood area. And Luis's story in the city, he's originally a promoter, all the way back into the Tony Betoy days at Riviera and at the Aragon. So sort of back in the big house era of the late 80s, going to high school up there, started throwing raves in the 90s under the name Viva and became sort of one of the biggest. There was maybe 5 really big rave promoters in the city. And by big, I mean like 5,000, 6,000, 8,000 people event type parties. So he was kind of one of the top 5 during that era. That led to doing independent events at the Metro, but then eventually having Joe Shanahan turn and say, hey, I'd like to hire you to be the full-time talent curator for the Metro, before Smart Bar had a separate talent curator. So sort of the first person to work that job, did that for a while, and then decided that, it was working at Q101 doing radio shows too, and then had an opportunity to move to DC to head up Sirius XM, which was a satellite radio that had just started at the time. And they had a dance channel called The Move. And so he was the curator at The Move for Sirius XM for, I think it was around 8 years. And then went on to help Red Bull create their music and run their music academy, which was a very successful version of what this can look like. And then moved to New York, and he's been in New York for about 15 years. Took a break from doing music, events and curation. And 5 years ago, I used to play a lot of events for Louis, so that's how we became friends. And he's also a really good record producer too, and DJ. He doesn't DJ anymore, still makes music. So really great at all these things. And then about 5 years ago, he came and said, hey, I want to do something again, but I don't want to do it just event based, because I've done hundreds of those. That's not so exciting. So I'd like to do something similar to what we did with Red Bull's Music Academy, but not the sort of you have to apply and be selective type things. Like, let's have talks, panels, workshops, and then events at night. And what could this look like? And, there weren't many people doing events and panels at that time. I mean, there was like ADE and the Winter Music Conference and a few of these, but they weren't really like culturally exciting. They were sort of very much like business and lawyers. And, here's an agent talking about how you get an agency. And we thought about wanting to do something that was community focused and talk about essentially our three pillars of what we still talk about today, which is creativity, community, and culture. So everything sort of lines up with one of these 3 topics, anything we're working on. And so, so that's how the idea was born. And the first year was 2021, just as we were coming out of the pandemic. It was one day. I think we had maybe 10 people involved. There was like two panels, maybe 3, if I remember correctly, at one venue, and then a performance, some performances after that, and that was it. And then the second year, it grew to like 3 venues and 20 people involved. And then the third year, it was like really crazy. We had like 8 different venues across the city, and it was like maybe 45 people. And last year it got bigger, and then this year, it just continues to get larger. So I think this year there's maybe 60 different people involved. 4 venues. So that's how it's evolved over time.
Wow, that's amazing. Are you familiar with SimFest? Do you remember SimFest?
I don't think so.
Yeah, there was an event called SimFest, I think maybe 2013, 14, 15, 16 in Chicago, where it was movies and music. And they used to have a wonderful event. For some time, we did a couple of things there as the Vintage House Show. I also saw that, the Vintage House Show programmed the Chicago House Music Festival in 21, 22, and 23. We didn't do 24, the 40th year reunion with David over at the city. But we saw you did the 2024. You assisted with the 2024 event, which was fantastic, celebrating 40 years. So you already had that kind of, programming and planning experience and bringing on unique topics and things like that. So this is something that was very easy for both your team, since they already worked at Red Bull, and for you, since you already knew a lot of the players and knew how to get that kind of conference done.
Yeah, I did 2025 too. So as you know, David, I think he's done a really great job of pushing to get some consistency across that festival. The festival struggled a little bit with being the same weekend every year. And, of course, city politics lead to what types of resources they get. But I think David's done a great job with the resources that he has, with getting community members to come in and recycling them in every 2 years to be a part of the planning committee. So I did my 2-year term I hope he asks me back, but I wouldn't be surprised if, after the 2-year term, which was communicated to me, that somebody else comes in, which is how it should be. And it was really much an honor to work for those 2 years and see how the city does it. But yeah, I had come in there with already a few years of panel planning, going. And so it was a good fit.
That sounds really wonderful. Fortune, how did you meet Andrew and decide to become a part of this team?
Great question. We first met. Well, actually, I don't remember if it's when we first met Andrew, but I booked him a couple of times when I was promoting in Milwaukee. So the first time I booked him was in 2012. And then again after that, he came and played for me up there. Do you remember if that's the first time we met?
Yeah, same memory. I don't know. We might have met before then, but I'm pretty sure we met before then, before you booked me. But yeah. I don't remember when that was.
You know how it is, memory. And then when I moved down here at the end of 2022, I had relationships with so many people in Chicago, but it had always been in event settings, right, with loud music or else online. And so I got to enjoy making a point of grabbing meals with a lot of people that I'd known for decades, but never had really long in-person conversations with. So Andrew was one of those people where we got together and had a great dinner and tons of conversation, and that relationship has kind of continued since then in that vein. So also, I think coincidentally, it was completely coincidentally, the weekend I had moved here was the kickoff party for Viva Acid 2022. So I ended up at that party that weekend. My first party as a Chicago resident just happened to be a Viva Acid party. And so the relationship with Viva Acid started right then. And the next year they had me as a panelist and a moderator the following year, or the other way around, but I've been a panelist and a moderator. And I've done some light consulting with them in the past about their panel subject matter and flow and programming. So incrementally, I've just been more and more involved every year with Viva Acid and
That is wonderful. I think you mentioned that this year's theme is Future Proof, Built to Last, Fortune. Tell us a little bit about that theme, how it came about, and how your programming is, really illuminating that theme.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Future Proof Built to Last theme originated with Luis. It's been part of the mission of Viva Acid since the beginning, right? Of building a stronger future, but also honoring the culture and the history and the roots of the past, and being a bridge between the two, so that the future can be stronger because of that connection. So it was a natural evolution from what's been done in the past and what Viva Acid's mission is. And then yeah, I think when I got together with Luis and Andrew and they first suggested, hey, we want you to build a proposal for what programming could look like this year around that theme, is really exciting for me because it ties into things that I already care a lot about, which are equity in music culture, fair representation, access. We see this, Chicago is so important, Detroit is so important, and yet as we zoom out, we see homogenization, we see a separation from the roots of the culture, we see a lot of money being made by folks that have not been attached to the culture, and it not getting back to the folks who have been really responsible for being the spark. So I've been invested in that already in my work in Milwaukee of really creating more equity. My agency is built really about giving fair representation to folks who don't get a fair representation historically. And so when we talk about connecting the past and the future and strengthening the future of the culture, those conversations have to happen. Like, that's a part of the conversation. How do we keep making sure that there isn't appropriation? How do we resist some of the corporatization of the spaces? How do we not even just make sure it's inclusive, but make sure that these are spaces of belonging, where it's not like, hey, we're just including Black folks and queer folks and brown folks. Actually, these spaces, this culture belongs to them. How do we continue to infuse that? So it's just really a great fit when they asked me to be a part of it, and that's what the programming is built around. So the first day, there's 3 panels every day, 3 days. The first day is about foundations of being in the music industry. So you can come and learn about LLCs, rights, publishing, how to protect yourself legally, how to set up a business, and also how to self-care. The music industry can be pretty grueling and demanding, and nightlife is also. How to self-care. We have a panel specifically around keeping creative power and keeping care of yourself. So that's the first day. The second day is community focused, all about building community. And so we have panels of folks who have been mentors and passing on generational knowledge and how to do that. We have a panel of folks from the queer community, panel of trans folks thriving through opposition and how they hold space and create space and continue to do that. And then the third day is panels based around implementing knowledge and taking action. Because so often we are inspired, whether it's by a panel or an artistic event or going to a gallery or seeing a film, but we don't have oftentimes the mental bandwidth to say, I'm inspired, now what do I do with this inspiration to act on it? And so the last day of panels is designed around, we will tell you how to act on it before you even leave here, so that you can leave Viva Acid already with clear ideas of what you want to do and how to move forward to create that, to fulfill that whole mission of strengthening the future and being future-proof.
That is so important. You know, action is something you don't see in a lot of conferences across the board, no matter what field you're in. It's like we're going to chit chat. People are going to tell you what they did, tell you how brilliant they are, and then no one's going to figure out like how to become as brilliant or more brilliant, what you can do immediately to use the information that you're getting. So that sounds amazing. Andrew, tell us, give me 2 or 3 highlights for this year's summit that you think everyone should come out and see. If they don't do anything else, what are the like 2 or 3 things they must check out at this year's summit?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to be straight up, like coming to the talks and panels is what this is all about. There's number 2 and number 3 are go to our events and buy a ticket so that we can support continuing to keep these free. The whole thing is to knowledge share and platform voices that we really believe are important to be amplified. And the best way, the broadest way to do that is to make these as accessible as possible and free. And so the only way that we can make these free is by having the nightclub events being ticketed. So I think all 3 days are really cool. I also want to bring up something that's happening during the panels and workshops, which is the workshops portion, which is definitely something cool. We're having our normal programming is to do these panels where we have guests and we talk about topics like Jessica presented, and then we have usually a workshop portion, which is partially about creativity. So when we talk about community culture and creativity, the creativity aspect is like, how do we talk about ideas? How do we make stuff? How do we think about songwriting? How do we produce records? And this year we're doing the 3 days of workshops going in parallel with the panels at the venue with a really awesome organization called Fem House. It's an organization run by a woman named Leah Chisholm, who goes by LP Giobi. She's a really amazing artist, superstar artist, keyboardist, DJ, record producer, phenomenal. And her co-founder, a woman named Lauren Spalding, who goes by Her Mix a lot. They feature Darlene on their show and in their space a lot. And Fem House does a really good job. And the mission, they're a 501c to platform women and people of color to help them with curriculum around getting women involved in music production and accessibility around music production. And they do a lot of curriculum programming around Ableton and how to make music, and have really great sponsorships and partnerships with music tech companies. So working in music tech myself, I've supported their cause through the companies that I work for, because I really appreciate the work that they're doing, and that needs to be platformed more and amplified. And so it was a great fit to have them take over and do the workshops for us this year. So the workshops this year are happening during the same period time that the panels are. Ableton has been brought in by them to create what they're calling a Ableton playground. So Ableton makes these things called pushes, a push and a move, and it's this outboard sequencer, hardware sequencer, and they're giving us about 15 of those. And then Rockin' Vintage Synths, Synth City is also giving us some synthesizers to connect with those, and that's going on from 5 to 9 downstairs at the venue, the Lincoln Park Room, and there'll be a 1-hour workshop each day that happens during that 4-hour period. So that's an exciting thing to check out, because you'll be able to get close to some gear that you wouldn't have access to unless you purchased it, and also learn from the workshops. The workshop on Thursday is with Darlene Jackson, where she's going to be talking about how to brand yourself the house music way. The second night, the Friday night, is also going to have Darlene there. DJ Lady D, to be clear, doing a workshop about how she shows up and conceptualizes music. And actually, I'm going to be working with her because I keep calling her Darlene. DJ Lady D and I have worked on music together many times, and kind of talk about how she shows up to a studio to conceptualize projects. And works with an engineer. And then the third day, the workshop will be by another friend of ours and a friend of him house in Ableton, a guy named Fess Grandiose, who's an awesome Ableton instructor, showing people how to work with outboard synthesizers and a DAW. So that's all running concurrently with the panels upstairs. All of this is happening at a really cool venue in Lincoln Park. It's this place called Lincoln Park Room. It's right near DePaul's campus. It is a 3-level building that is designed for, I'd say it's designed for events like this, but it's designed for many types of events and expositions. And they do a lot of stuff with companies and brands to do activations. And so it's a three-level venue. There's a podcast studio on the first floor, a big room. We're going to have the workshops. The second floor is a big walk-up room with a 2-floor loft in it. So it's a big, maybe 25-foot ceiling room. That's where the panels will be, and it's a nice layout. And it's going to be a really great venue for the talks and workshops.
Wow, that sounds amazing. That sounds really great. Is any of it going to be live streamed, or you really want the audience to come there in person and be on site with all the others?
So we always record and archive everything. We're not going to stream this. What we'll be streaming though is we do. So to answer your question, we do want people to show up and come in person.
Come in person.
Yeah, we're big advocates. I mean, as you know, one of the core aspects of community is being a part of it, right? And you have to sort of do that in person. And so there's a level of connection that happens when you're in person. However, the streaming aspect, because we're taking over Gramophone the 3 days in a row too. So we're doing live in-store sets at Gramophone. We're having some artists DJ there from 3 to 6 each day at Gramophone. Those will be streamed on Gramophone's Twitch channel and archived as well too. So that there's a streaming component to this. It's just not the panels.
Okay. So if you go to Gramophone's Twitch, you said Gramophone has its own Twitch.
Yeah, Gramophone.
Site, and folks can go there 3 to 6, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or
just Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Wow, that's great.
And just to plug shamelessly why you should show up in person. Every panel, of course, has a Q&A. Some of the panels will actually do Q&A throughout the panel instead of just at the end. So because we really want to create an interaction here. This isn't about just a bunch of talking heads who are experts talking at you. Like you said, just saying how great they are. That this is about valuable information for the community to be able to take away and for them to be able to talk to people. But especially that dynamic is on the last panel on Sunday. So at 4:30 p.m. on Sunday, the closing panel, Your Turn Now, Igniting Your Success. That is going to be purely audience driven. So the whole way that panel will work is we have Chachi Guerrero, DJ Heather, Ghetto Mark, Hieroglyphic Being, Vince Lawrence, who we started with, and Reed Barton Golden, who's a PR guy from Infamous PR, fabulous PR agency. And people will have the opportunity to say to them, this is what I'm inspired to do. Where do I start? Or this is who I am. I'm a promoter, I'm a DJ, and I'm doing all these things, but I'm running into a roadblock here. Read from PR, what should I be doing next? Or DJ Heather, you've had your brand H is for Hustle and your record labels. How do I move my record label forward? So that will be an hour plus, actually, almost 90 minutes of people being able to get personally coached by super successful industry folks across the board with all different levels and nuances of experience. So you want to be there in person and get that juice.
I agree that it's so important. We learn from each other. I think you become more inspired when we're together. I think COVID has made it so easy for us to be remote, but it is important for us to be together and learn, certainly in this space. So, guys, I really appreciate you all coming on the show and telling us about Viva Acid. We believe all of our audience, young people and mature adults should get some valuable information there. Tell us, number one, how do people register? Where do they come? Where can they find you personally, Andrew? Staying with you, Fortune.
Sure. So all the information, registration and tickets for the night's events is at vivaacid.com. The registration for the talks and workshops is free. Gramophone is obviously free. And then our night events are ticketed. And just to go over that real quick, our Thursday night event is at Pulaski Club on Central and Milwaukee and Logan Square. And we're actually premiering a film that Luis made called Children of Acid, which is essentially a 90s documentary about acid house in the 90s, not the 80s, but like how it's grown into becoming a part of moving the rave movement forward. Mm-hmm. And we're having a woman named Rebecca Goldberg who does a live performance under the name 313 Acid Queen from Detroit coming to play, as well as with Steve Noah. And then Friday night, we're doing an event at Avondale Music Hall in Avondale, which is a lovely independent venue on Milwaukee, just a little bit further northwest on Milwaukee. And that is Byron the Aquarius, who's a world-renowned house music artist from Birmingham, Alabama, awesome keyboardist. He's going to be doing a hybrid show where he's playing keys live. Fantastic. Byron's worked with Jeff Mills. He's one of Jeff Mills' resident keyboardists. He works with Kai Alsey a lot, was a hip hop person that kind of graduated in the house, has a publishing deal with Empire. He's just a phenomenal artist, does all sorts of stuff. Next with him, we have Oliver Dollar playing with him the same night, who's from Berlin by way of Detroit now. Everybody knows Oliver's music. He's made some really famous records along the way. And then we have Remarkable from Detroit as well. Fantastic artist, singer, performing artist, works a lot with Defected. She's an adjunct faculty member at NYU, teaches music business. That's Friday night's lineup at Avondale. And then Saturday night's lineup at Avondale, same venue for Saturday night. We're doing like a 90s themed rave throwback, which is Luis, one of the founders. His company Vibanauts is celebrating their 30-year anniversary. So we're doing sort of a 90s throwback with that, with Josh Wink, Fotek, who is a legendary drum and bass artist that just started touring again. He's back in the mix. And DJ Sluggo, Ghetto House Pioneer, and DJ Heather, who we spoke about. That is Saturday night's lineup. And then Sunday is a closing event. Friday night, we're doing that in collaboration with the party called Tribe. They're also playing as well with Remarkable, Byron, and Oliver Dollar. Fantastic group of people from Pilsen that have an awesome Thursday night at the Giant Penny Whistle. We love the community they built, so we brought them in to do that party in partnership with us. And then Sunday is a closing event with another local promotion collective we like called House Calls. And that's a day party closing event from 2 to 8 at an underground venue on Goose Island, just near where Crowbar used to be. This is called Prism now, but people of this age bracket probably remember Crowbar, right there on Kingsbury. And that is a friend and awesome artist from Los Angeles named Juliet Mendoza, also a defected artist amongst other labels, New Groove, etc. She's headlining. I am also playing with her, and then two other locals, Dylan Golds, awesome vinyl DJ, and Misbehavin', who is sort of a techno artist who runs a party at Smart Bar. Is not a resident there, but runs a regular party at Smart Bar. I forget the name of it. I think it's called Hot Bitch or something like that. But that's the Sunday lineup, and we're really looking forward to all of that. So vivaacid.com is where you can get tickets for those events. And you can also register for free there too. Information about me can be found at my website, andrewemil.com, or on my Instagram handle, which is Change Request, all one word.
Change Request?
Yes.
It's interesting.
Yeah, that's an artist name that I've used along the way to make records with. So
Okay.
I've had that name for a long time as well too, but you can find me there. You can just search for my name and find me, but that's the handle.
Got it. So we can reach you. Fortune, where can we reach you into maybe, personally and creatively? Where can we find you on media, social media, etc.?
Yeah, my website is apart-music.com, apart-music.com. My contact is there. And then social media is Fortune0074 is my handle, based on Facebook, on Instagram, on Threads, on all the places, basically. So come connect with me there and connect with me in person at Viva Acid. And as you heard, the parties are going to be amazing. So I'll be at the panels all day and at all the parties all night. It's going to be a very worthwhile 5 days. But it's amazing programming that I don't want to miss any of it. So I hope other folks will feel the same. And I think we do a 3-night pass too, where if people are going to come to all the parties, those are available on the website as well. So, and the registration for the panels. So come and see me at any of those places.
Yeah, and if you buy a weekend pass, you get a T-shirt for free, and the weekend passes are only $100 for all 4 events plus a T-shirt. So it's a really good deal.
The T-shirt alone is worth $100, honestly.
People love the merch. The merch is critical. So if you want to get that merch, get there early, because people run out of things all the time. So get there, get that T-shirt right away. Check it out. I'm going to do everything I can to be there on Thursday. I think that sounds like, again, what you're doing sounds great. I'm so happy. I didn't get a chance to review you mentioning Super Jane, which I think is so important for people, who remember them back in the day and then recognize how they're still impacting the culture. Darlene was just at TEDx Chicago. I don't know if you all got a chance to check her out there, but I went and it was amazing. It was an amazing, sort of day of discussion. You learned a lot, but it was great to have DJ Lady D come on with house music, get the crowd going, and then end it with house music. So it was really great. So she's really doing so many things to advance the exposure, doing exactly what you want to do, which is promoting the culture and preserving the culture and legacy of house music. So I think that's really great. So guys, thank you all so much for taking the time to be here today. I will touch base with you. We're probably going to get this on the air on tomorrow, both maybe in the afternoon and in the evening. And if you all are ever in Evanston, I know you said you spent some time in Evanston. If you're in Evanston on Wednesdays from 10 o'clock until 11 o'clock, you're welcome to check us out on the show live in studio on WNUR, which we stream WNUR.org, 89.3 FM. And then, of course, you can find us, the Vintage House Show, on all of our different streaming options, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. And you all can check out the Vintage House Show at thevintagehouseShow.com, .us, .org. I mean, just check out Vintage House Show and you'll see all the different things that we're doing. we'll keep everyone posted. We've got a new exhibit going on coming up soon. We'll keep you posted on that, and a lot of fantastic new activities taking place before the end of the year, celebrating our 10-year anniversary. So we're so happy to continue to create and celebrate the history of house music with fantastic people like Andrew Emil and Fortune. And we just really look forward to this event. We know it's going to be a phenomenal success. And then maybe the next years we can add to its success. However we can help, we'd be happy to do that.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, congratulations on 10 years, and thank you for having us and the support. It really means a lot.
No problem. Thank you all so much. Good luck. Hopefully I'll see you on Thursday.
That would be great. See you then.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Vintage House Show podcast. Please subscribe and share, and check us out live, WNUR 89.3 FM, Wednesdays at 10 o'clock.